once we get that right, which is for me the most important thing, that they have, first of all, respect. The second one is commitment. The third one, passion. Those three ingredients are non-negotiable.
Hello and welcome into the Non-Negotiables podcast. I'm Gavin. It's Friday and today we get to welcome back Justin. How you doing, Juz?
I'm good, Gav. How are you?
Yeah, good, mate. Good. So today, the second half of the pod today, we'll cover the Sheff Utd Preview. We've got plenty of other stuff to cover in the first half, though. Let's start with how life in Holland is treating you.
Yeah, good, mate. I can't complain at all. I find the time the games are on, that they're like evening now, like actually, British time, makes it really hard for me to catch games. I'm sure it'll just be an adjustment period, but I prefer them in the morning. I've just been so used to that. So, but I mean, other than that, it's starting to get pretty warm. We went to the coast for the first time earlier this week, which was really nice. Language is coming along well. It's really nice.
Good stuff. Yeah, I knew you guys had settled in there quick enough. How long have you been there now? Like 2 months, nearly three?
Nearly three, yeah.
Nearly
just
three?
A little shy. Yep.
Yeah. Good stuff. All right. Well, let's crack straight into it then. It's been a while. So I'm sure you've seen the London Evening Standard do a London Awards, and in the sports section, Declan Rice won the London Player of the Year. I think that's pretty well deserved, right?
Yeah, I would say so. He's been, absolutely massive for us, transformative, really.
And that comes off the back of basically, single-handedly almost dragging West Ham to their first trophy in 732 years.
Yeah, well, I mean, we kind of talked about this before it happened, and he was about as close a thing as you can get to like a safe transfer, and I think he's even exceeded expectations. He's just been really good, very dynamic. Our midfield is so smothering. I mean, when you compare it to how we've played when Partey has been out, and now Partey's been out almost the whole season, but I mean, Rice is just, inevitable. I mean, the guy's been great.
Yeah. And so I said before, right, that I thought by the time Rice was done, we'd be the only club that he was associated with, right? Like, I just think he's one of them players. He looks like he was born to play for Arsenal. And I just think when he retires, a bit like when Ian Wright retired or even Thierry Henry, Arsenal is the club you associate him with. And I think with Rice, that's happened really quickly. And I assume you saw his acceptance speech at the London Awards, but he was asked what his best moment of 2023 was, and he picked his last-minute winner over Manchester United at the Emirates as his highlight of the year. I know there's a load of whammers that are absolutely fuming at this because they won the Europa Car Hire League third division, whatever cup, and they thought he should have picked that. Was that hilarious, or was it absolutely fantastic, or was it a mixture of both?
It's definitely hilarious. It's definitely fantastic. I don't know. I find it really humorous. You're absolutely right, though. It's like he's been here a little over half a season, and it just feels like he's been here a while. He's an Arsenal player through and through. It feels that way, already.
It does. Like it would be weird to even looking at old pictures of him now. Someone put a picture up on a timeline, on their Twitter timeline, of him wearing a West Ham shirt, and it looks weird.
Yeah, I mean, he fits right in, man. He looks so perfect in the kit, and man, I'm so ecstatic about the signing, still. But that is really, really amusing. What Ben the Whammer have to say about it?
Do you know what? So a little bit of behind the curtain info here. I'm actually meeting Burn the Whammer in Jamaica tomorrow. So I will find out in person in Jamaica by a swim-up bar exactly what it is he feels about it, because I'm sure he's going to tell me all about it. But we haven't, because he's on his way to Heathrow now to stay at the airport, at the hotel at the airport overnight before he flies out to Jamaica early in the morning. So I haven't actually had a chance to talk to him about it. But it will be a subject when we're sitting on the stool at the swim up bar with pina coladas in hand. It will be a subject that I bring up.
Man, you should record it.
I should, shouldn't I? I should actually go live at some point. Maybe I'll do that. Maybe I'll try and go live with Burn the Whammer from a pool bar in Jamaica. That would be interesting.
Yeah, get a couple of drinks in him, and then call me in, and we'll do a interview style. See how he feels.
Oh, we won't even need to do that. We can just say something and let him go. He'd be like a wind-up toy. So yeah, that'll be fine. I'm looking forward to that, and I will get his reaction. Other than that, what have we got? Arteta being up for Manager of the Month award. Him and Guardiola are the two front runners. I don't think you can look beyond Arteta, right?
Yeah, I don't think so. I mean, I haven't really looked at like City's overall Manchester, I can't spell. City's overall results, but yeah, I mean, I think it's got to be Arteta. I mean, what do we? 6 wins in a row and a ridiculous amount of goals. You know, we're winning 4-1, 5-0. You know what I mean? Like, just put like, and I know not many of the clubs have been great that we played, but they're not like all rubbish. You know, I mean, we put West Ham to the sword, and I mean, yeah, it's. I feel like it's got to be Arteta.
Yeah, and even though I'm not sure where City's draw came in. I know since New Year we've won 7 from 7. They've won 6 and drawn 1, and I can't remember where their draw come in. That might have been in February. It might even have been in January. But regardless of that, what's the Chelsea game? When was that?
February 17th.
It was February. Okay, so Arteta's got 100% record and Guardiola hasn't. But even if he did have, the style that we've been winning in and the amount of goals we've scored, it's just inevitable, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't really agree more. And I mean, we're doing it with injuries as well. I mean, we're not as bad as Liverpool or anything, but I mean, we still have, some important players out, and, to be getting these results is in the way we're doing it as well. And I mean, obviously, we're both biased, but I think we're playing the best football in the league right now too.
Absolutely. I don't see how that's even, like, taking all biases aside. I don't see how that's possible. How it's possible to consider anyone else for that.
Yeah.
Worth mentioning as well that if Arteta does win it this month, it will be his 7th win, which is pretty astounding for a manager who's only been in a job like 4 years. I think he's already got half as many as Guardiola and Klopp, and he's obviously been there less than half the time. And considering the amount of work that had to be done when he got here, that's pretty immense.
Yeah, it really is. The squad, everybody knows this, but the squad when he took over was, rough. There was all the turmoil and change up, behind the scenes, and he's just done a fantastic job. Another point I'd like to add too is that our goals, not only are we scoring a lot, but they're coming from a ton of different sources. We don't have just, some big Norwegian up top that's carrying us. We've got a bunch of people that are scoring right now too, so it's good stuff. Even the back line is contributing decently with goals. We have Kivior get his first.
Yeah, it's been great. They're coming from, and it needs to be in our team, right? Because I think, I'm a big one for telling everybody that Bukayo Saka needs to be getting 30 goals a season, right? Like, I just think that's where he needs to be. And to be fair to him, I think he's got, 7 goals in the last 5 games, or 8 in 6 maybe. So he's certainly getting there. But you're right, our goals tend to come from everywhere. And I think it makes us harder to stop, right? Because you haven't got one person that you can just zoom in on.
Yeah, we're almost impossible to neutralize. It's like if you shut down some, we know our wingers get doubled up on almost every game, and that is probably, between like Martinelli or Trossard or, Saka, that is where a lot of our attacking impetus comes from. But if they do get marked out of the game or quiet, you just know. I mean, Odegaard's capable of popping up with a few. Rice now. I mean, even Jorginho. We have I believe we have the highest scoring center back in the league still with Gabriel, or was that last year? Maybe I'm mixing, but I think we do.
That's every year, mate. That's every year. Since he got here, he's got 15 goals. I mean, and don't forget, they took the one off him the other night. Well, they didn't take it off him, to be fair. It wasn't his goal. He caused it, but it wasn't his goal. It was definitely an own goal against Newcastle. But yeah, even that withstanding, he's still got 15 goals since he arrived, which is more than anyone else from set pieces in that period. And that includes people who take set pieces, by the way.
Yeah, it is. It's really insane. And I mean, our goals on set pieces too. I mean, we're way ahead of everybody else. Whatever Yover is doing, it's been pretty incredible.
And that's it. And the only way that we get stopped is when we stop ourselves, right? Because the Fulham game aside, we've dominated pretty much every single game we've been in this season. I mean, the home and away games against West Ham were obviously vastly different results, right? So we lost 2-0 at home, we won 6-0 away. They were basically the same game without the goals.
Yeah. And I mean, it is good we're starting to hit this kind of rich vein of finishing, because I do think we've played pretty damn decent most of the season, but the finishing, wasn't quite there. And now we're being a lot more clinical in front of goal without playing that much better. But I mean, it just looks night and day, when you've got scores of, 6-0.
Yeah, and so to that, Saka is also up for the Player of the Month for February. I think he's pretty much a shoe-in to get this as well. He's scoring goals for fun. He's creating chances, getting assists. I think he's been. I actually personally think Odegaard has probably been our best player, but Saka's the one who's up for Player of the Month, and I understand why. Because if you just look at it from goals and assists, the boy's on fire.
Yeah, I mean. I feel like, Saka's got a chance to win, almost every month with his consistency and stuff like that. But yeah, I just don't feel like anybody is, nobody's really, how do I want to say this? He's not carrying us, but it's clear that he is kind of still the main guy. You know what I mean? Like the main creator.
I think he's the main source for goals. And I don't envisage that changing. We'll talk a little bit later about striker targets and what we're going to do there and stuff. But I just don't envisage that changing, and that's kind of changed my mind about what we are going to do in the summer transfer wise. But I just, like I said to you before, I just think Saka is the 30 goal a season man. I don't think we need to buy a 30 goal a season centre forward, because I think we've got one. He just plays out on the right.
Ooh, yeah, I don't necessarily think we need a 30 goal a season striker. I wouldn't mind somebody a little bit more clinical than Jesus, at least, or maybe a different profile.
I wouldn't mind someone that just plays a bit more often than Jesus.
Yeah, no, that's fair. But yeah, I don't really, we don't really seem like we're set up as the kind of team to just feed like a Holland type striker.
100%. We're not. And you couldn't just drop a striker like that in this team and have it seamlessly just happen, right? But one thing I will say,
City couldn't even do that.
No. It took them a while, and this is the point I was going to make with Arteta. Every year, sometimes it's even every few months, Arteta evolves this team and he evolves the style of play, right? Like the style of play that we are playing right now is nothing like the style from last year. It isn't even really that close to the style we had before New Year. There's been a complete, almost overhaul of the system, I think, over that break in Dubai. And so I think if we did buy someone, and it wouldn't surprise me if we did, but I think it would be another rejig of the system, which I think is almost certain to happen anyway, regardless of what happens there, just because Arteta evolves this side constantly.
Yeah, he really does. He keeps the opponents guessing. It's very fluid all the time, and I think that's one of the big reasons for our recent success. I mean, no silverware to show for it, but we've been very competent and competitive, and I think it really has a lot to do with him. Constantly being able to evolve. It's massive.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's amazing the the work that he's done, and the way this team's able to play 3, 4, 5 different tactics within a half absolutely astounds me at times. I've never seen anything like it.
And considering we're I know we've got most of the first 11, but we're a little bare bones as far as options go. No Tomiyasu to fit in on a tricky winger. No Zinchenko, which would have been a catastrophe last season. Party, another catastrophe. Our only big money defensive signing's been out all season. The fact that he's able to still have us tactically evolve, be competitive. I mean, be maybe better than we've ever been. Still with all these key players out is huge. If you'd have told me we were still battling for the title with as many games as Jesus and Zinchenko have missed, I probably would have called you a liar. But here we are without both of them.
And that's a good little segue into this then. So if you look at where we are right now compared to where we were last season at this point. Now, last season at this point, we were top. We had exactly the same amount of points as we've got now. We'd scored 1 less goal. I think we'd conceded 4 more by this point. Obviously, the collapse was about to come because we were about to hit that international break. We were about to lose Saliba. We were about to hit that international break where Partey basically, I mean, to this day, we don't know what happened, right? We don't know if it was an injury. We don't know if something happened and his head just went. But whatever it was, Thomas Partey was a different player from March onwards than he was from August through February last year. This year, it feels like we're in a completely different spot, right? Because where we had players falling like flies last year at this point, we've got them coming back into the squad this year.
Yeah, it's huge. And yeah, I guess I kind of touched on this on my last point, but it really does feel massive to be able to have, Jesus come back in, Zinchenko to come back in, Party to come back in. I know Timber is going to be, it'll take him a while to get up to fitness and stuff like that, but just having him as that option to play left back, right back, I mean, it's going to be huge. And it does. It's kind of a reverse of last season, but I mean, it's got me pretty optimistic,
And the momentum's different as well, Jazz, isn't it? Because I think even before the Saliba injury last year, even before Partey turned into Titus Bramble, like even before any of that stuff happened, we were at this point just struggling to keep our heads above water. Like we'd been so good in that first half of the season, and in the second half of the season, we weren't even close, right? Even though we were still winning with, obvious exceptions of the game at Goodison Park and, and the Brentford game at home, but we were generally still winning, but it wasn't anywhere near convincing like it was in the first half of the season. And you just had the feeling that we were running out of gas. Whereas I think this year it's the complete opposite, right? In the first half of the season, we were feeling our way in. We really weren't. We were dominating games without really looking like we had a cutting edge. Now we are in full flow, and it just feels like a complete reverse of last season. It feels like we're about to power through the end of the season, whereas last year we were just trying not to fall over.
Yeah, that is actually a really good point, and not something I've thought too much about. But yeah, it does feel completely, the reverse. And, especially, I know you said you wanted to touch on this, but, like, especially considering we're chasing, first this year as opposed to being, in first being chased. I think it really is just kind of like flip the season on their heads. But I almost feel better about this season than I did last season, even at this point, considering we were first at this time last year and we're third this year. I mean, I think especially looking at, Liverpool's got 13 injuries or something insane. I don't see them being able to keep up with us in City.
It's an interesting one, the Liverpool one, because I know they've got a lot of injuries, but I don't think many of them are particularly long term. I think only the Jota one really is long term, and I just think this league, the bottom half of this league, is so bad that I think they can probably muddle through. Like they've got Forest tomorrow, There is no way they don't beat Forest with this team. I don't care that they've got 13 players out, whatever. They're going to beat Nottingham Forest. That's the thing for me, is that I think them players will come back. I really do think this is a 3-team title race. I think Liverpool have pretty much overperformed. I don't think Liverpool are as good a side as us or City. But they're there. They've got experience. They've got the emotional thing behind them now with Klopp. Klopp's obviously a very good manager. So I do think they're still a danger. So where do you stand on what you want to happen in the Liverpool City game in a couple of weeks? Because I haven't had the chance to ask you this. We've been debating it quite a bit between everybody online and stuff about what do you want. I'm thinking a draw is probably the best result for us. Are you still in the school of thought then where a Liverpool win would be better?
When it comes to like title challengers and head to head, I'm almost always like pro draw. Even if maybe, I mean, it's tough to say. When it was like a 2-horse race last season between us and City, obviously anytime City, lost was good for us.
Yeah.
But I'm thinking a draw for sure. Like you said, I mean, they don't have too many long-term injuries. So I know they're still, I don't think they're going to like fall off dramatically. I just don't think they're going to be able to keep pace necessarily with us, and City.
Yeah, well, they've got a lot of games too, right? Like they're through in the FA Cup, they're in the Europa League, and it depends how seriously they take all these competitions. Obviously, with their squad being stretched in, it's not like they can just say, "Well, we'll run out a reserve side in the Europa League." And of course, we should touch on this briefly. I guess it was a really bad result for us, Chelsea winning, because it means that Chelsea game's called off. And I don't know if you've seen this, but it looks like it's probably going to be slotted in a couple of days before the North London derby. And then, of course, we've also...
I haven't seen that.
Yeah, you hadn't seen that? Yes, it looks like it's going to get slotted in a couple of days before the North London derby at their place. And also, one of our games, I'm going to have to check who it is, but we've got someone else who are likely to be involved in the FA Cup semi-final, because I think they drew Coventry in the quarterfinals. I'm going to find out who that is. And it looks like that's going to be displaced as well. So even though that didn't exactly go our way, we can't argue with Manchester City going through and drawing Newcastle and Liverpool going through and drawing Man United, right? It couldn't have gone much better than that for us.
No, absolutely not. I mean, that's exactly what you want is, harder competition for your opponents. I think it was James on the Arscast on Monday or Tuesday. He made the point Liverpool has like double the games we do in March. Mm-hmm. Which, I know some things can change depending on how the FA Cup rescheduling and stuff like that goes. But I mean, that'll be a big deal for them, especially considering, they've got half a squad injured. So, who knows? But yeah, with regards to the FA Cup draws, I mean, I know Newcastle's not the team they were last season or anything, but they still have it in them to cause City problems, I think. So yeah, you couldn't really ask for better draw results for us.
Yeah, what you want is a draw against a team that's going to keep them honest, right? Like that's all you're really asking for. You just put them up against someone that they can't just throw out the under-9s in. And Newcastle is that. It would have been better if it was at St James's Park. But like I said, They can't take Newcastle lightly. They have to give them that respect.
Yeah, and I mean, same with Liverpool. They've been putting out. I mean, the side they put out in the Carabao Cup final was really. But I can't really see them doing that to United.
No, they can't. They can't.
Yeah.
They've got to, especially being at Old Trafford, they've got to basically throw out their first choice team.
Yep. So yeah, I mean, it's great luck for us as far as the draws go. Couldn't really ask for anything better, except like you said, if it was at St James. But good stuff.
Yeah, so it's Wolves at Molineux on April 20th, which is FA Cup semi-final weekend. So if Wolves beat Coventry in the quarterfinal, which obviously they're going to be huge favourites for, then that game is going to have to be rearranged as well, which is, these rearranged fixtures at this time of season. We go out of the FA Cup and we think, oh, well, no one wants to be out of the Arsene Wenger Invitational Trophy. But at the same time, you're thinking, well, it's less games we've got to play. It's ended up affecting us anyway.
Yeah, and obviously we're hoping for a deep run in the Champions League as well. So I know March looks decently promising for us, but I think we'd be very smart to not take that for granted. And try to rotate where we can. And I know you're not a big rotation guy. I just mean, like, I think it's really important we finish strong with these reschedulings coming up.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think in March, I just don't think there's any room to rotate. There's just not, we just haven't got enough games, as simple as that. We've got 3 games in March. I know there's an international break in there as well, but what are you going to do? You can't rotate when your games are 10 days apart.
Yeah, that's a good point. And it's 3 Prem games, right? Plus Porto, so 4, or were you counting Porto?
I think that's counting Porto because the Chelsea game got moved. So we have Sheffield United on Monday. We have Brentford on March 9th. Then we have Porto on March 12th. And then we don't play again until Manchester City on the 31st. So it is 4 games with the Porto game in.
Yeah. And I mean, Brentford and Sheffield Sheffield especially should be, 3 points right now with how atrocious they've been.
Yeah, we'll go into that in part 2. But them and Brentford. Brentford haven't been much better than Sheffield United, to be quite honest with you. So they've got, this is the run where we really have to make hay while the sun's shining, and we've been doing it, to be fair. We've been swatting aside everyone that we should be swatting aside. So okay, mate. All right. Well, listen, do you want to leave it there and come back for part 2? And we'll do the Sheffield United preview?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. All right, mate. See you on the other side of the break.
Okay.
Hey guys, just a couple of quick halftime messages for you. Firstly, we'd really appreciate it if you could leave us a 5-star review on your favorite podcast app. It really helps us reach a wider audience, particularly on Apple Podcasts. Secondly, we're on all the social media platforms as the NN Pod. We're really trying to build a strong Gooner community. So next time you're on Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram, look us up, give us a like or a follow, send us a message, interact with other listeners, or just have a look around. Thanks for listening from myself, Paz and Juz. We really appreciate it. Welcome back into the Non-Negotiables podcast. This is part 2. It's the Sheffield United preview, Monday night at Bramall Lane. I know everybody's tired of me saying this, but it's a must-win game. I say it every week, but in reality, I think they all are now. Currently sitting 3rd, 1 point off Man City in 2nd, 2 points off Liverpool, occupy top spot. Liverpool travel to Forest on Saturday. City are at home to Man United on Sunday. I think it's impossible to see any of the 3 of us dropping points this weekend, Juz.
I've had an eye on this Manchester derby for a couple weeks now. It is interesting that, don't get me wrong, I think United are struggling, and overall they're a pretty shit team. But with these derbies, you never know what can happen, and I am a little hopeful that maybe they could steal some points there. I know it's unlikely, but kind of form goes out the window. Sometimes with those.
You got to hope so. I mean, United are carrying a lot of injuries as well. I mean, Højlund's now out for a few weeks, and that's going to really hurt them because, I mean, I know everyone's took the piss, but I actually think Højlund's a really good player. I've been really impressed with him, and I think that's a big loss for them. I mean, I would love them to get anything at all from there, but I just can't see it. I just think this is 3 points all round. Forest are a terrible team, and I can't imagine them causing Liverpool many problems. I mean, you can just see Liverpool going 2 up early and just basically taking all the sting out of that.
Yeah, I could definitely see that with Liverpool and Forest. So what does that mean for United then? Is it Martial up top, probably?
I don't even know if he's fit. I mean, could Rashford get a deck chair and put it in the middle rather than out wide? I don't know. I don't know what it means. I mean, Ten Hag seems to have Ten Hag's reached the stage of not give a fuckery to the point where he literally is just pulling players he's never heard of out of the youth team and throwing them in and hoping something works.
Yeah, that Manu kid though, he's been pretty solid.
Yeah, he's been all right. And then another one, Fosun, is it? I think they played for him last week, and he. I mean, they're so bad that it doesn't. This is the problem when United fans start getting excited about Mainu or Fosun or any of these players, I won't say it because I like it when they get carried away because it's funnier when they fall flat on their face. But you have to be careful when you see these types of players come into a team that's a very poor team playing poorly and they look good, right? Because we've been here before, right?
Yeah, I was about to say that's been us multiple times.
You remember Guendouzi, Torreira, basically that whole early Emery team.
Hell, remember recalling Francis Coquelin from Charlton, and he looked like world class for 6 months.
Yep, it's funny how that happens when your level is reasonably low. And Arteta gets a lot of stick for not playing kids and not doing this, but our level is now so high that it's incredibly difficult to put anyone in that. Where we were 3 years ago, it was easy for people like Saka and Smith Rowe to come into that team because the level was so low. Now the level's so high, they don't come in at that level. Do you know what I mean? Like, this isn't Bukayo Saka that came into the team. It was a different Bukayo Saka who's got to this level. And I think basically he dragged the team with him. Whereas now someone coming in at Saka's level, when Saka came through originally, is now so much lower than the level of everybody else. It's a tough thing to do.
Yeah, and I think expectations play a huge part in that as well. There's not this like when I remember when Saka Smith Rowe's a great example when he came into the team against Chelsea, that Boxing Day that kind of revitalized the season. Yeah. It's such a good example because there was almost no there was pressure. I know people were about to I
think Arteta was about to lose his job.
Yeah, but the fact that he came in and
there was no pressure on him, I think.
Right. Yeah, that's what I'm trying to say. Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, there was no way he could lose coming into. If he'd come in and been bad, you'd have been like, well, look, we've had Willian for the rest of the season. So
yep. Yeah, so I think, between the level of the team and the expectations that are placed on the team, it makes it really hard to bring in some kid. And I do admire the fact that he's still being able to persevere with Kivior a decent bit, and Maniri's got 2 games, I think, this season.
Coming off the bench, yeah.
Yeah, it's not all bad. You're still getting your cameos from Smith Rowe and
it's just hard to do to bring players in when you're playing at that level, and that was my point really about Man United, about Kobe Mainu, and that is that they're coming into a side where the level is pretty low. Like if you look at all the expected points of where they should be, they're a mid-table team. So you can look really good coming into a team like that when you actually aren't a world beater. That was just my point on that. So
yeah. And all right, United's been. Oh, sorry.
No, go on. Go.
I've not caught them a lot this year. Especially detailing my troubles with having to catch games at 9 p.m. and stuff now. But almost every time I've watched them this season, they've been second best.
Yeah.
And they're stealing points, I feel like, left and right.
Yeah, it feels like it in every game, doesn't it? I mean, from the very first game of the season when they beat Wolves at Old Trafford, remember when Wolves should have had the penalty late on, and it just feels like every game that they win, they should have lost.
Yep, I agree. I've barely seen anything like it. They're pretty dire.
Yeah, well, long may it continue because we need Erik ten Hag to get some more wins so he can keep the job.
Yeah, I was discussing this with a couple of my mates. It's like, where do they really go from here if they sack him? It's like they had the arm around the shoulder buddy manager and Ole, and then they tried to get kind of more the hard ass authoritarian in Ten Hag, and it's just like I don't see, if they do sack him, I think they'll be even worse, honestly. And this isn't like me trying to give credit to Ten Hag. He came in and he tried to do the Arteta thing, change the culture and all that, and he's just failing miserably. And I don't know, they're rough, man. I would never feel bad for a United fan, but they're in a tough spot.
Yeah, I don't know where they go next, to be honest with you, because if you look, I think there's a huge amount of luck right, in getting the next manager. I mean, Liverpool kind of stumbled upon Klopp, who'd been out of work because he'd got sacked from Dortmund because he had that really bad season there. They stumbled across him. Guardiola, obviously, Manchester City built their entire project around getting Guardiola. It took them, 5-6 years to get him in, but everything they'd done up to that point had been built around targeting him. Yeah. I think Arteta was a bit of luck, really. I think it was very fortunate he didn't get the job the first time when he was very close and they gave it to Emery instead. And then he's obviously a fast learner and he's learned on the job. I think that was a bit of luck. Tim Lewis coming in and obviously getting rid of Raul Sanllehi was a big part of that too. And I just think kind of United need that bit of luck, really. And none of us ever want to see Man United get lucky, but that's kind of what they need at this point. They're obviously appointing Dan Ashworth, the guy from Newcastle, formerly Brighton. And I think they just basically need to hit on a manager and it needs to work. And sometimes there's no reason for it working or not working. Sometimes it just does. And I kind of think that's where they are. I'm not sure that there's any sort of algorithm that they can really look at that's guaranteed to work.
Yeah, I agree completely. This summer is going to be kind of interesting because I feel like there's going to be quite a few decent managers available. You have Mourinho still out of a job, which that would be hilarious, by the way. Mourinho coming back, part 2. But
yeah. I got a buddy of mine. He's convinced that Mourinho is going to be at Newcastle in the summer, and I could
actually see that.
Yeah, I could see that too. I think the longer this goes on, the more it seems like Alonso to Liverpool will probably happen.
I think
seems like he's not really interested in Bayern, so that would be an interesting one. Yeah, it's going to be a merry-go-round in the summer for sure. There's going to be a lot of big jobs available. Bayern, Liverpool. Probably Man United, Newcastle. So there's going to be some big jobs around.
Probably Madrid too. I mean,
if Ancelotti, do we know if he's going to Brazil? Has he confirmed that?
Not 100%, but I mean, he's been flirting with them for 2-3 seasons.
Yeah, it does seem like he's going to end up as the Brazil manager. So that one will be open, and obviously Barcelona as well, right? They've not replaced Xavi on a permanent basis, right?
Yep.
So that one's going to be some big moves in the summer, some big merry-go-rounds. All right. Well,
I think you've got Hansi Flick. He's available too. I could see someone taking a gamble on him.
Yeah, and after the Euros, Nagelsmann as well, who's in charge of Germany, he might pop back onto the club scene. And obviously, you've got the retreads. Xavi's going to be out there looking for a job somewhere.
Inter Miami. You heard it here first.
What's that?
Inter Miami.
Inter Miami. Yeah, that's always possible. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I don't see Klopp managing anyone next season. I think that's guaranteed to be a year off. Yeah. So it'll be interesting. All right. Well, anyway, back onto our game on Monday night. We come into it absolutely on fire. We've had 7 straight wins since Salt Bay sprinkled his magic dust on everybody in Dubai.
That wasn't salt, by the way.
Is it just down to Salt Bay's magic dust?
Maybe. No, honestly, I think the break came at the perfect time for us. We've got
another break now. We should all fuck off to Dubai for a week.
Hey, but I really think timing was pretty much everything here. Just being able to not only take a little bit of a break and have some, kind of team building camaraderie, but it's clear that they were able to kind of set up a new tactical plan during the break that's paid, dividends. And I think it's, I don't want to take any credit away from Salt Bay, but I think the timing is more to do with it than anything.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. I know it will really upset Salt Bay because I know he's a listener. I think I heard that he actually plays us on loop in his restaurant. But it might upset him. So Salt Bay, I am sorry. But we do think that there are other factors as well as your magic dust. So it seems like we're going to get some good news on the injury front as well. Obviously, Jesus was on the bench last week. He will be fit to play. Partey is apparently almost a certainty to be in the squad. Tomiyasu has a chance. I think Zinchenko is unlikely, but maybe an outside chance that he does. Timber obviously isn't going to be ready yet. Where you think we're going to be on the starting lineup for this one, Juz?
I don't really see any of those. I think it'll be what it's been. We've already discussed the amount of fixtures in March. I don't think we gamble, especially like longer term guys like Party. I don't think he's set for a start or anything like that. I think we'll see some of these guys come in around 75, 80 minutes. But starting 11 is going to stay mostly the same. I can see maybe Jesus.
I was going to say, I think Jesus is going to start. I do. I think Havertz will drop back into midfield. Jorginho will drop to the bench. And I think Jesus will start. This is a game that we really should be dominating from the very first whistle. So I can definitely see that.
But yeah, other than Jesus, no, I don't think there's really any chance for anyone else to get a start. Hopefully he just doesn't take too big a gamble and kind of builds up fitness slow is what I'm hoping for. Because if we can stay relatively, unscathed until April, May, we all the better chance for us.
Yeah, and while we've been swatting aside all before us, Sheffield United have been absolutely terrible. In their 8 games in 2024, they've only won 2. And interestingly, in their last 3 games at Bramall Lane, they've shipped 5 goals in each game. Once to Brighton in the Cup, once to Brighton in the league, and to Aston Villa in the league. They're rock bottom, 13 points, remarkable minus 44 goal difference. They've conceded 66 goals, which is by far the worst in the division. Just this has to be fill your boots time.
Yeah, I think so. I hate this. Like, I don't want to say we jinx it, but I do feel like there's been a few times on this pod where we're like, oh yeah, this is a game we've got to put 5 past them, just put them to the sword, and it ends up being like a tight 1-0. So I don't want to, jinx us or anything, but this is definitely one that anything less than 3 points would be a catastrophe. And
it would be an absolute disaster not to come away from there with a win.
And we really should put at least 4 past them, even if the shooting boots aren't on that day. There's just no reason not to. They've been very dreadful.
Yeah, and it's not like, you can say, oh, well, their team news, right? Mason Holgate is suspended, so he'll be out. I don't think it's a massive boom when you've lost the last 3 home games by 5 to say one of the defenders is going to make a difference. But he's out. The fake Chilean, Ben Brereton Diaz, he's coming back, and George Baldock is back. Will probably just replace Holgate. There's really nothing that they've got that gives you any kind of worry whatsoever. I imagine this is a game that's going to be played almost entirely in their half. It's one of them where it's about that first goal, right? Like if you can get first goal in the first 10 minutes, it could be a massacre.
Yeah, and that'd be great. I'd love to be able to score early, play in their half and have, some of our guys coming back from injury get on at like 60, 65 minutes, just a nice relaxing run out basically. So yeah, hopefully we can get that first goal early and kind of cruise through. That'd be, best case scenario. But I'm almost certain, for a win, it's one of those, like it something's wrong if we don't,
Yeah, for sure. And because they're basically like a lot of the times you look at these sort of games, right? And you're saying, well, they're fighting for their lives. They're not fighting for their lives, right? Like they are literally already down. I think they're 11 points from safety already.
Yeah, they're doomed. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, the only chance they've got is Everton and Forest getting more points deductions. And even then, I don't know they can stay up. Luton are the only ones down there that have got a chance. Burnley and Sheffield United are gone.
Yep. Yeah, I agree. And I don't see them putting up that, that relegation scrap that you kind of have to worry about, like nothing to lose, go all out, that they already look like they know they're doomed,
Yeah, I think so. They're playing like a side that already know they're down for sure. Just one bit of news that came out that we didn't discuss in part one. It seems like the club and Jorginho are in talks over a new deal. Now, Jorginho obviously technically is out of contract this summer. There is a club option to extend for a further year, which would just extend his contract for one more year on the same terms. What we're talking about is a new contract on an improved wage. It would probably be a 1-year deal with a 1-year optional extension, basically the same as this, where he would have next season, and then we would have the option to put it for another year if we wanted to. Just, I'll be honest with you here. I don't really get this. I mean, I think Jorginho has been good the last few weeks. I mean, I think it helps that we haven't really played anybody. But I think he's done well. I would extend him. There's no question about it. I would definitely extend him. But I don't really see the need for this new deal. Can you shed any light on this for me? What am I missing?
I can't, mate. I can't, because I don't really understand it either. I mean, like you said, there was a club option to extend something that he'd already agreed to, with the original contract. I get, rewarding players for good playing, good experiences, but give him a small signing on fee, leave the wage the same, or even take it down, because I feel like at this point his minutes are only going to go down. Once Party's back, there's talks of Zubamendi or another CM. I don't know. I don't see the point in giving him a pay rise when his impact is probably going to go down. And I want to be careful when I say this, because I was a Jorginho signing hater. I didn't want it. But he's definitely proved me wrong. And I'm glad we're getting him on an extension, but I don't understand the new contract pay rise at all.
No, and I mean, I know there's a theory out there that he's probably going to end up on Arteta's coaching staff because Arteta loves him that much. I just have a feeling with Jorginho. I think Jorginho is the kind of guy that's probably just going to want to play and play and play until he can't play anymore. A bit like Santi Cazorla's done, really. Just keep playing, and he's not going to be able to do that at us, right? So let's say he signs for a 1+1. He stays next year. I don't see any way that we extend it again, right? He's 32 right now. He'll be 33 by the time next year's over. I don't see us extending that contract again, and I don't see Jorginho being at the point where he's ready to quit. Surely it'd be much easier to extend him for next year with the option that's already there. We're not going to get a fee for him at the end of it anyway. So just extend him, let him go with a handshake and a promise of a job when he decides to hang up his boots.
Yeah, unfortunately, Gav, that makes too much sense. So we're not going to be able to do that.
No, I guess. I mean, I don't know. I just don't get some of these options. I mean, I think I told you before. I saw it reported in the Athletic that we actually had an option to extend Aubameyang, and rather than use the extension, we gave him that massive deal. And to me, that's madness. You should give yourself the maximum time to basically make an informed decision, right? And when you've got, especially in the case of Aubameyang, when you've got a 31-year-old striker whose biggest asset is his pace, I don't see how offering a new deal on improved terms when there's already an extension ready to go, I don't see how it makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, similar thing with Jorginho here. Obviously not near at the magnitude that the Aubameyang deal was, but yeah, I agree. It doesn't really make any sense. I mean, again, I mean, I get wanting to reward the player, but this just seems very short-sighted.
Yeah, it's a weird one. So, quick question for you. I obviously am not a Jorginho fan, although I do think he's been good last few weeks. Credit where it's due. Personally, in the Porto game, I wouldn't play Jorginho. Paz is very adamant that he would play Jorginho. Where are you at on this?
So my favorite role for Jorginho is coming in when we have a lead. That's where I like him utilized, because he comes in with experience and a cool head. He helps us keep the ball. He's solid defensively as long as he can, kind of keep up. and he's still capable of making, you know, a good pass between the lines. I'm not really crazy about him like ever starting, even though, you know, he has been very good. Don't get me wrong.
Were you intrigued? Were you intrigued a little bit by the way he was used against Liverpool in a league game, where we played him basically as the left 8 and left Rice as the covering man, which makes sense because the way Liverpool play with the press and the way and how quick they are to come forward, you don't want Jorginho being the man trying to cut that out. Right. But Arteta was clearly keen to dominate the ball, and he felt Jorginho was the right man for that. Are you intrigued by the possibility of seeing that a little bit more often, where Rice doesn't move out of the 6? Jorginho is actually the one that plays a little bit further forward.
I actually, well, I don't want to say I like that more. I think it's case by case, and it made a ton of sense against Liverpool. But yeah, I actually do find that pretty intriguing. I think Jorginho's got the skill and like the head on his shoulders to be that lone 6. I just think he's a little, you know, he's a little older now. He's a little slow. So, you know, to kind of put him as like, you know, kind of a little more defensive left 8 than someone like Havertz or Smith Rowe would be, I think makes a lot of sense because he will help you keep the ball. You know, he is, like I said, solid defensively. I think it's not a bad move.
And he will go vertical a little bit more than I thought as well. Mm-hmm. Like that's one thing that has surprised me since he joined. He is willing to go forward a little more. I mean, the ball for Martinelli to set up the cross for the Havertz goal against Newcastle is a perfect example of that. You know, Martinelli made the run, and as much as I love Declan Rice can't play that pass. Like the pass that Jorginho put into Martinelli, Declan Rice can't make that pass. It's just not in his game right now. I think he could get there, but as of right now, it's not in his game. It does make me wonder a little bit if Arteta would I don't think he's going to drop Havertz, right? But I think if he decides to stick Jesus on the bench again for one more game, it wouldn't surprise me if he went for the same lineup as last time, just to have Jorginho picking out passes like that from a deeper role.
Yeah, I mean, Jorginho's got it in his locker. He's done it a few times, made some really nice defense splitting passes. I'm struggling with what game it was, but that one where he put it right inside the center back and the right back for someone to run onto was sometime last year. I want to say it was Villa, but I don't think that's right. You know, he's got that in his locker. Pretty good passing, and I do think he gets an opportunity to use it more when he's not, you know, the 6. So I do think it's a nice option. I just think.
How does Partey affect this though? Because to me, like Declan Rice is playing every minute of every game, so I don't think Partey coming back has a damn thing to do with Declan Rice. But I do wonder how it affects Jorginho, because if you look at the way Jorginho plays, it's kind of like dollar store Thomas Partey. Right, like to me, that's how it looks. Like if you're telling me that we're going to play the way we did against Liverpool, and you've got a choice between Jorginho or Partey if they're both fit, then the obvious answer is Thomas Partey, surely. So with Partey coming back, how does that affect Jorginho's game time?
I think it limits it significantly, personally. But let me ask you this: I don't want to answer your question with a question. But you've got Odegaard, Partey, and Rice, right? Who's your 6, 8, 10?
Yeah, that's not mine. That's not mine. Mine is Rice, Havertz, and Odegaard. If Havertz isn't needed up top, that's mine. I wouldn't. I am sick to death, and there's other reasons for it other than just footballing. I am sick to death of relying on Thomas Partey and then watching him break down and then having to reshuffle the entire side because of it. I'm just sick of it. I would like rid of Thomas Partey. I would be happy if Thomas Partey never played for Arsenal again. Personally, I don't think it's possible. I don't think we're going to be able to sell him in the summer. I think he's going to be here next year, whether we like it or not. So you have to make plans accordingly. That's what I was asking about the Jorginho thing, because to me, I still think Havertz is part of the first choice 3 if Jesus is up front. But it's those times when Jesus is out, which again is about half the time. It's those times when Havertz pushes up top, And then you talk about that third midfielder, right? So it's almost a fourth choice midfielder you're looking at. Now, then I think the answer is Thomas Partey for me when it comes to that.
Again, though, I think what I was trying to get to with my question is, if Rice and Partey both play together, who do you have as the 6 and who do you have as the 8?
Oh, okay. All right. I see what you're saying. It's a tough one, that, because a part of me says you don't ever move Declan Rice, right? Declan Rice to me, is that screen. He's the anchor. He's the do-it-all there. And I don't really want to see him moved from there ever. But I also don't really like Partey being more advanced. I mean, do you remember the first 6 months when Partey was here and he was trying to be Michel Platini? And it was driving me nuts. So I think in that case, I think I would use Partey as the single pivot because Arteta loves a single pivot, right? Like whatever else he does, there are a couple of things in Arteta sides that do not change. 4 at the back, it can change to 3 to build up, blah, blah, blah. But it always starts with a 4 at the back. And then it's a single pivot. It will never be a double pivot. Even in them games when Jorginho plays, it's not a double pivot. It's a single pivot every time. So I think with that being said, I think for me, it would be Partey as the 6 and Rice in the 8. And that's just one more reason why I don't want Partey being first choice.
That's interesting. I can't go against anything you said. I kind of feel the opposite to a degree. I would probably keep Rice in the 6 and put Partey in an 8. What I would almost like to see more would be more of a double pivot almost.
I just don't think you're ever going to see that in an Arteta team. He doesn't like it. He doesn't like it. One of the reasons that he coveted Jorginho so much, and this is funny looking at it now, but one of the reasons he coveted Jorginho so much is because he believes that Jorginho is one of the few players in the world, along with Rice and Partey, that can play that single pivot. Now, maybe when he first started chasing Jorginho years ago, that was true. From what I've seen now, that is unequivocally not true. Like, I don't think Jorginho can play that in a game where you are going to be under pressure. Now, I think he can do it against Sheffield United. I think he could do it perfectly fine against Newcastle last week. But when you're playing Manchester City, when you're playing Liverpool, even if you're playing a Newcastle from last year that were really more hassle and harrying them than what they were this year, I don't think Jorginho can play that role. But that's the thing with Arteta. That is what Arteta wants. That's what his side's built around.
Yep. Yeah, so I don't know. I think for me, like the 6 in that single pivot that we play is like almost sacred. I wouldn't mess with it too much. So if Rice is fit, I mean, he'd be my 6 no matter what. And as frustrating as you said, you thought Partey was in his first 6 months, and I agree. I was very frustrated too. I do think he would contribute a little more offensively than Rice would in the 8. And I just think Rice is more reliable in that 6 anyways. Again,
Judge, the counter to my argument about Partey trying to be Michel Platini his first 6 months is that we were also shit. Like, I don't think you can overstate the fact that was a poor team that Partey came into. That was before everything changed, basically. So I do wonder if it would be different now when Partey looks ahead of him and he's got Ødegaard slightly ahead of him to the right. He's got Martinelli ahead of him to the left. He's got Jesus standing in front of him, and he's got Bukayo Saka coming in off the right-hand side. I do wonder if that is a different proposition to when he first got here and he looked up and he had Nicolas Pepe running up his own arse, and he had Alex Lacazette smoking a cigar on the halfway line. Do you know what I mean? Like, this is a very different side to that one. And because of that, the roles are all changed, and he might feel that he can play that role differently.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point. And I mean, who was the deepest midfielder then? It was Xhaka, right? When Partey was pushing up?
Yeah.
I mean, having no offense to Xhaka, obviously, I think he's been brilliant his past couple seasons, but having someone like,
but he wasn't brilliant then, was he? Because that wasn't his role. It was a complete. Xhaka was in that role at that point because Partey hadn't really established himself at that point, and we had no one else. Torreira was screaming that he wanted to go to Boca Juniors, and Guendouzi was doing whatever Guendouzi was doing. So I think Xhaka had to be in that role then. But that's my point, is that I think we had a lot of square pegs for round holes at that point, whereas I think now this team's a lot more complete, so maybe he would fit into it a little bit differently.
Yeah, I think so. I really do. I think he'd do a little better there. I mean, I'm sure he'd probably still be a little bit frustrating at times. Hopefully he doesn't decide to shoot too much. But I think it would actually work out and be pretty balanced, all things considered.
It would be interesting if we do get a couple of goals up, just to see what the substitutions are on Monday night and to see where Partey does come in at. Because I'm sure if he can come off the bench, he will come in. Yeah, no, well, that's right. No, does he come in at right back? Does he come in as the sixth? Does he come in as one of the eights? We really don't know because, like you said, this is a new team. This is a different team to last season, even. It's a different team since before Christmas, like we said. Partey's been out since game 2 of this season. So we haven't seen Partey in this team at all.
Yep. And when he did play since Rice has been here, it's been at right back.
Right back, yeah. Game and a half, wasn't it? He spent at right back. So that would be interesting. I mean, Ben White's been one of our best players over the last couple of months, so I think he'd be. And I don't think he had a very good first half of the year, Ben White, but he was clearly carrying something, and he's been better since. I would be surprised if Arteta tried to reprise that Partey at right back thing, but it's Mikel Arteta. I mean, who knows what he's going to try next?
Yeah, honestly, I love Ben White too. I think in our end of season ratings, I gave Mané and stuff like that. I think he could use a game off. He seems like you said, he almost seems like he's been carrying something almost all season. But we'll see. I think with as long as Partey's been out, to throw him in at right back the way we use our fullbacks, I think it'd be just asking for another hamstring issue. But
yeah, his leg would fall off basically. I don't see that. I don't see that happening. I'm hoping Tomiyasu makes the bench. I don't expect Tomiyasu to come on, even if he makes the bench, because Arteta doesn't just like to bring people in starting on the bench. He actually loves to leave them sitting on the bench and not do anything for their first game. And it's just his way, right? It's just what he likes to do. He obviously likes them getting integrated with the squad and stuff before he puts them on the pitch, because we've seen this a few times recently. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I do think Partey will get on at some point though, because I just think he's going to want that option of Thomas Partey when we get into Porto with the Manchester City game coming up. I mean, how big a boost would it be to have a fully fit Partey and a fully fit Jesus for that? I mean, and let's be fair, the odds on us having a fully fit Partey and a fully fit Jesus for the rest of the season is almost zero.
Yeah. Well, I mean, throw Zinni in there too, and it is zero. But I mean, I think with his fluid and attacking and the goals we've been scoring, you put Zinchenko into this team at left back, I feel like, man, we could be putting up 7-8,
Yeah, I don't think he's going to make it back on Monday. Arteta didn't rule it out, but he wasn't as positive on him as he was on like Partey and stuff.
What's he out for? Is it a calf?
It's a calf again. Yeah, it's the same thing that I think he's been dealing with that all season pretty much. It's, he's missed games for it before. So I don't know. We're in such a good run of form at the minute. I think it makes it easy not to rush people back. Like last year.
Yeah, of course.
I have no doubt that last year, at this point, Partey and Jesus would both have been thrown into the team weeks ago.
Probably. Yeah.
And and then they're going to be injured again, and then and then you have to deal with that. I think now, first off, I think Arteta learns from his mistakes, and I think he's learnt from doing that a little bit. And secondly, like I said, the team is playing so well. There's no desperate need to rush these players back like there was before. Yeah,
I couldn't agree more. And I think it's a huge blessing, honestly, to be able to give them time. So I just hope it's managed well enough that again we can kind of get through the season mostly unscathed. But the Porto game is
Wednesday week or Tuesday week. Sorry, Tuesday week.
Yeah, Tuesday, March 12th.
Yeah.
So I would say even by then, a lot of these guys that are,
they should barring Timber, everybody should be back for that, providing we don't pick up anything else in the meantime.
Yeah, so I mean that'll be huge, and I mean it'll be a totally different side, that Porto sees, and we're home. I actually still feel really good about that leg, despite.
I'm incredibly confident about that home game against Porto. I mean, I hope it don't come back to bite me in the ass, but I'm incredibly confident about that game. I really am. I just think the way this team's playing, especially at home, there's a little bit of revenge to be had, and we do like a bit of revenge. So I'm incredibly confident about that.
Same.
Cool. Okay, mate. Well, it was nice to see your handsome face again. Been a while.
Yeah.
And like I said, I'm in Jamaica all next week. We'll try and get something out post Sheffield United. I'll see if I can. I'll see if I can sober up long enough to maybe do an hour. We will hopefully see you then after the Sheffield United game. So, just thank you very much, mate. Enjoy your weekend.
All right, sounds good, mate. You too.
All right, mate. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.